With 500 million users, internet users in Europe alone, it just shows you how small the planet is. In these tough economic times, we in the UK can see Europe as a big growth area where everyone's a potential client. In the back end of the 90s, where you had a brochure printed, all the extra cost of getting it out to clients, whereas now you have a website. A website can be global. You put a website up, anyone in the world can see it. And that's where we have the advantage now everywhere. If anyone tells you they're quiet, there is potential to get work anywhere in the world. But we really will like to, most people in the UK will focus on Europe.
The services to business has been basically driven for translation by the internet, whereby when the company started nearly 20 years ago, most documents were received by fax or post. Now, 90 to 95% of the documents are received and distributed to clients via email. So that enables us as a translation company to receive documents that are clean, legible, and we can redistribute them to wherever the client requires worldwide. So that is an enormous change that has enabled the industry generally to develop in a different way. The downside of that is the increasing requirement to update our network systems because of the type of work that we do, which is again into finance and legal. Then we have a higher requirement from most of our companies or clients for our network systems to be secure. And as people are well aware of the leaks that go on in the internet and through various services, equally we're well aware that with the government regulations, the financial regulations, and generally the secure type of work that we do, then our systems must be secure and that file transference must be secure. Therefore, we have spent money on updating our network firewalls, etc., to ensure that.
The question of standards in translation interpreting is increasingly important. I continue to be shocked at the number of well-educated and senior people whose first reaction is to use Google Translate on an important document. The results are often laughable, and the simple message is that there are only very limited contexts in which machine translation works. And for the vast majority of industries and businesses, you are taking a significant risk if you resort to Google Translate, if you use an accidental linguist, somebody who happens to know a bit of the language, or anything along those lines. I would consider that to be a significant risk to reputation.
Inevitably, websites is another big change and an improvement for the industry because it gives an opportunity to translate rather than hard copy, translate in a moving world, if you like, on a much more global market. And websites can be translated either through the back of a website, so passwords can be given, or from our point of view, it would be better on a Word document, so it's cut and pasted in. And the prime advantage of that is that the translators then have got their keyboard, which will be in a different language, or in the one that they're actually using, and they'll have their dictionaries and thesaurus. Whereas if they go into the back of a website, it is very time-consuming and not necessarily accurate. A much higher cost for the client actually comes into that.
I have to admit that I have even used Google Translate from time to time, but it's only for very simple words, usually just one syllable, such as the word welcome. We recently had a presentation at Europe Arab Bank for all of our staff, and I thought it would be really nice to say hello to them in their indigenous languages. So I actually did use Google Translate on that occasion, but I don't think I'd ever use it for anything a bit more serious.
Professional translators specialise in a certain field that they cover for their translation, such as technical, legal or financial translations. With this specific knowledge, they are able to translate a wide range of texts accurately. Translating information and documentation is a skilled art, and it should not be taken for granted that just because one can speak the language, it certainly doesn't make one a specialist.
The business community needs translators and interpreters primarily because of the dangers of relying on the accidental linguist. This might be somebody that you have in the company who happens to have studied a language, or somebody who speaks the language. They're not professional translators and interpreters. They won't understand the technicalities of text, audience, purpose. They might not be aware of quite what you're trying to do and why. And quite simply, the savings that you're likely to make by using an accidental linguist almost certainly don't come anywhere near the risks that you're taking in communicating in a way that's probably not professional.
Right. Well, one of the important sides of specialists and the translation industry is to ensure that you have continuity coming through, because many clients feel that if you put a number of people onto a translation, they will get the same end result. And that is not so, because everybody writes differently, and therefore you'll get different styles. And you can only think, as an example, of different newspapers. It can be exactly the same type of editorial, or rather story, for the Sun, to the News of the World, to the Times, to the Telegraph. And all of them will have effectively the same story, but it'll be in quite a different style. And that's the same with translation, because it's not a science, it's an art, and each person will write differently. So it's very important that one person sees that document throughout. The other thing is that very often if a company is doing a large project, it will have a tender, it may have a contract, and then it could have a revolving agreement coming through. There will frequently be different people working on those documents. It could be lawyers, accountants, venture capitalists, the clients, governments, whoever, and all of them could be working on similar or same documents. And therefore there's a lot of cut and pasting that goes on. And one person who will see all those documents is the translator. And I can remember an incident where a number of years ago there was a client who was wanting a contract to be translated into an Eastern European language, and the contract was worth approximately £22 billion. So therefore it was a purchase of a utility for one of the newly opened Eastern European countries. And one translator had been doing all the documents, but had been coming in over a period of months. And in one of the documents, just prior to a tender being put in for this contract, the translator informed us that the client, unless they actually addressed the envelope in a certain way, would not have their tender opened. But because the client had purchased the translation through a junior secretary, that junior secretary was not prepared to inform the more senior people in the country, in their company, that the envelope had to be addressed in a particular way. So we were concerned because we realised the value of this particular contract, and therefore we put it into writing. And the client did accept it. The envelope was written in a specific way, and at the end of the day, they obtained the contract for £22 billion.